Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, pivoters. Wherever you are calling in from today, welcome to the lounge. Today, my guest is Jason Ballard. He is the host of podcast Soar Higher, and he is the number one rated coach in the Eastern United States. Today, we're going to be talking about reaching your highest altitude as a leader and what that really takes. Jason has over 10,000 hours coaching high executives in Fortune 500 companies and small business owners. So he is really bringing a wealth of knowledge, and we both share the love of aviation. Jason, it's great to have you on the podcast today.
Hey, Sarah. Great to be with you and your guest. Always love spending time with like-minded folks that are out there. They're passionate about what they do and just want to give and help folks out there.
Thank you so much. So when we talk about being a leader, there's a lot of technical skill, of course, required to run a business. But there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that requires empathy, requires us to be present to really be able to notice the nuance. And so that's why I chose this quote by Zig Ziglar: "Your attitude, not your aptitude, determines your altitude." And I thought that was so fitting, considering the language that you use as well with your podcast. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you have found over the years training and coaching other individuals and business leaders about the importance of mindset when it comes to how they approach their leadership?
Yeah, I love that Zig Ziglar quote. He's one of my famous or one of my favorite, I should say, folks out there that's got some really good, one-liner kind of quotes, and it
Yeah.
really just kind of brings things home. And in leadership, everything starts with how you think,
Hmm.
right? And it even goes beyond leadership. I think that's what's true with everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are in the organization. Like everything starts with how you think. From the
Right.
minute you get up in the morning, put your feet on the floor, and start your day. It's a decision.
Yes.
Life is just a series of micro decisions about when you're going to get up and what you're going to wear and what you're going to eat for breakfast and the kind of car you're going to drive and what time you're going to get to work and who you're going to talk to and the things you're going to do all day, right? It's just a
Right.
series of these micro, they say we make about 35,000 decisions a day
It's crazy.
as human beings, right? And so you have a decision. When you wake up and rub the sleep out of your eyes, you have a decision. Am I going to show up happy,
Mm.
sad, pissed, upset, angry, whatever, right? Am I going to kick the dog? Am I going to hate my kids? Am I going to love my kids? Am I going to, love my wife or husband or whatever? Like it's a decision. You
Right.
you you have to take accountability for yourself in how you show up. And it all starts with you, especially as a leader, because you're an example for everybody in the organization. They're all modeling you, they're all watching you.
Right.
And when I train and coach people on leadership, I kind of liken it to like a goldfish living in a fishbowl, right? Everybody can see every move you make all day, all the time. They pay attention to the tone in your voice, how you reply to issues, challenges, problems. They pay attention to the clothes you wear, the kind of car you drive, when you come to work, when you leave work. They pay attention to every single thing that you don't even think they may even be paying attention to. And they model that. They're kind of measuring that. And so as a leader, you have to be aware of that and be conscious of your mindset and your attitude. Even if it's a bad day, even if things aren't going well, you just show up, and you show up not to put on a show, but you show up to be the best leader, um, decision maker, and supporter of the people as possible.
Absolutely. I love that you highlighted that people are watching and emulating everything that you're doing. All of these micro decisions that we often think nobody's paying attention. And I always liken it to children, right? The children will do as you do, not as you say.
Yep.
And ultimately, in the workplace, it's a very similar concept because if you're running around like a headless chicken, for example, and constantly rushing and scattered everywhere, then even though you're telling your team to rest or not reply to emails at 2 a.m., they're going to see you doing that. And they're going to think, oh, well, you're just saying that to be nice, but really I need to do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I've had that same challenge myself, because I'm a entrepreneurial guy. I'm a,
Yeah.
a leader of, had the privilege of leading 12 different organizations. And, when you're a leader, are you ever really not working per se? Not really, because you're always, there's always things going on. You
Right.
even after work hours, you're meeting people for dinner and
Mhm.
excuse me, you're just always engaged on in a lot of different things in a lot of different ways. And so you're never really kind of off duty, really, as a
Right.
leader. It's about balance, though, right?
Mm.
And so there have been times where I'd send some emails. Hey, we need to, check out this, or hey, let's look at taking this project in this direction, or something, right? Pick the topic, and it'd be like 8:30 at night. I'm kind of just thinking about it. When I'm thinking about it, I'm responding. And then I found out, earlier in my career that people were, stressing about that, like
Mm.
thinking I needed an instant response to that at nine
Right.
o'clock at night. And I'm taking them away from their family and, you know, games and reading books or whatever with their kids or whatever that may be. And I had to clarify, like, look, I got a lot of things on my mind, and I like to keep things off, keep the hot potato off my plate. And so you may get something from me at 8 o'clock at night. It doesn't mean you need to reply at 8 o'clock at night. If there's an issue where I need an instant response, I'll just call you on the phone. I'm not just going to email you. Right? We're just gonna have a quick conversation and deal with some urgent issue and move on. But if you receive something from me that's not titled urgent, solve right this second, then it's just in your box for you to deal with it the next day as appropriately as possible, right?
Yeah.
And once people kind of understood that and they're like, okay, like we can relax, we can
Right.
focus, just because I get something from him at some weird hour after
Yes.
hours doesn't mean that. And then I figured out email. Um, Years ago, the email came, the email providers came out with this really great feature. You can write the email and then tell it when to send it out. And then
Yes.
that became my best friend because then stuff was off my plate, it was done, and then it
Right.
just launched the next day like I
At
had
8
sent it
AM.
right,
Yeah.
and that proved to be really valuable.
Yes, that is such a great tool, and I love that you, highlighted both options because in some teams, in some work environments, having the conversation, will help the team understand, right? And that way we can respect everybody's boundaries and understand the working atmosphere, but as certain organizations grow or in certain structures or in culture, right, when there's a high power distance between the leader and the team, they may still not believe what you're saying, right? Because of the intrinsic belief that they have from a cultural perspective. So that send later function, I remember when I started to use that as well. It was great for me. Like you said, I could get it off my plate, but it also didn't stress the team unnecessarily because they truly didn't believe it for a long time. This was when I was living in Asia. And so that was a great way to work around and make sure that both parties could be in a more calm state rather than,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what's going on with the other party. So with that also, that's very closely tied to time management. So how do you, structure your emails? Are you one of these people who you have blocks in your day where you will come and address your inbox? We have so many tools these days like Slack and Monday and goodness knows what else, right? Where people can ping each other and, the
Yep.
notifications are endless. And then sometimes, you have an email conversation, and then there's a text thread, and then a WhatsApp thread, and then a Slack thread. So, what have you found to be most useful when it comes to replying to messages and emails?
Yeah. in the day and age that we live today with umpteen different ways to communicate, text messages, phone calls, Slack, Teams,
Mhm.
email, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. All good tools,
Right.
but you've got to pick the right tool for the right communication
Mm.
method or whatever, right?
Right.
If you are sending out hey, everybody in the company's getting a pay raise at the end of the year due to all of the great performance and of you and the company as a whole, we're going to give everybody a 10% pay raise or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great for an email. It goes out to the masses, everybody gets it. You write it one time, it goes out to hundreds of people or whatever that number may be. Great. Um, Slack is, great for a small team.
Mm.
Now, not I wouldn't recommend using Slack for something that's like a major HR update. Hey, our benefits
Yeah.
packages are changing. Read about it on Slack. It's not really the best tool for that. So when it comes to communication, you got to pick the right communication for the right thing. Like if I'm going to counsel somebody because they, may have messed something up or caused a problem knowingly or unknowingly, I'm not going to do that on Slack. I'm not going to do that on email. I'm just going
Right.
to, send out a calendar invite to meet in the office and just have a private conversation about whatever the issue may be and handle it that way, right? So you
Mm.
got to know when to communicate, how to communicate per those situations. But when it comes to emails and communicating through that process, they come and go all day long,
Right.
right? And so we get in a habit of like this fear of missing out, fear of like, oh, there's something new. I need to look at my phone. I need to,
Right.
you're in a meeting and somebody's talking to you about something important and your phone's buzzing and you're like, oh, I got an email from my neighbor down the road. He wants to meet for dinner tonight. And it's like it's distracting.
Right.
The number one distraction in our lives is the phone and all the things that go on with the phone.
Right.
So for me, in meetings and as being a leader and certainly being a coach and an example for other leaders that I coach, um, I don't answer the phone. I turn the phone off when I'm working with people and in meetings and coaching and training sessions. I will check email in the morning. And in between things, I will check things and coordinate back and forth and, send messages if I need to in these pockets of
Okay.
time
Yeah.
because I believe as a leader, things just fly at you too fast, right?
Right.
For most people, I'll give you an analogy. When you are working in an organization, whether you're in a management position or not, it's kind of like flying a Cessna. A Cessna goes about 180, 200 miles an hour, and you're just goes to a certain altitude, and there's only so much capacity of the thing, and it only goes so fast.
Mhm.
Okay. When you become a leader, a business owner, an entrepreneur, and you've got an awesome responsibility of running an organization and making decisions, you it's like going from a Cessna to like an F-22 fighter jet. It goes a lot faster, which means things coming to you
Yeah.
from all kinds of different directions. You name it, it's all coming and it's coming at you
Very
at
fast.
Mach 3.
Yeah.
And so you got to get really, really good at prioritizing your time and dealing with things in an efficient manner to cut through all these things that are flying at you, or you're going to get overwhelmed by it all and drown in it. You're not
Mm.
going to be able to keep up.
Yeah.
And so I have found that in between my prioritized meetings and engagements, I will stay on top of my email. At the end of the day, my email is caught up. By 6 o'clock in the evening, my email's caught up. I never go day to day in my emails. I had a client one time and we were talking about priority management. And this person was horrible at prioritizing their time. It's not time management, it's
Mhm.
prioritizing their time. Like,
Yes.
oh, I use the calendar. And I'm like, yeah, but you haven't prioritized the crap that is on your calendar. So it really doesn't matter.
Right.
You're not focused on the big rocks. You're focused on all the little nitty things that keep popping up that you
And
just want
yeah.
to, consume yourself with. And we were looking through the calendar, and I noticed when he was sharing the screen with me, there were 1,726 unread emails in his inbox.
That would drive me nuts.
We had our session, had our time together. We achieved the things we want to achieve there in that particular session. And as we're getting ready to get off the call, I said, oh, by the way, what's up with the 1,700 emails?
Yeah.
Oh, I get stuff all the time. I mean, then unsubscribe.
Right. Yeah.
Well, this happened and that, and he gave me all these excuses. I'm like, look, like you can't tell me that's not going to fly. Like, that's not a good answer.
Right.
And long and behold, we went through his emails, and there were some really important emails in there. There were
It was just
emails from
missing.
clients that
Wow.
expected something. He was just overwhelmed and
Right.
behind and couldn't keep up. And we had to figure that whole process out from start to finish again, and retrain him to think differently
Mm.
about his time and what he's doing and how to deal with all this stuff.
Yeah. It's like having 50 tabs open, right? But you're only really using 1 or 2. And so even though, you're not using energy there, it's still using your energy because it's running in the background and you know that
Yep.
it's there. And I mean, we've all been on the call where all of a sudden there's like music playing and the person doesn't know where it's coming from. I mean, that's happened to me, right? So
Yeah.
learning to just, I will have it open when I'm using it and I don't need it there to remind me because I can have a different system. So I think there are going to be quite a few people I might direct to the 16-minute mark of this episode to reevaluate their relationship with how they approach email because I have several friends, colleagues, my partner, who that number I see on the phone of the emails, and I'm like, you get that away from me because that's giving me anxiety, and I don't know how you handle that.
Well, it messes with your mind. It goes back to the beginning part of our conversation, Sarah, where it's about mindset.
Yeah.
Because if you let 1,726 emails pile up on you, what happens in the brain?
Mm,
I'm behind 1,726 emails.
right.
Oh, today it's 1,826 emails. Next week it's 2,026 emails.
The next thing was
In the
45,000.
brain, your brain is telling you, I'm behind. I'm overwhelmed.
Right.
I can't keep up. And it creates stress and it creates anxiety, because if you're behind on 1,726 emails, chances are your thought process and your mindset about how to solve problems,
Mm,
take in stuff, process it, prioritize it, and do something with it, whether you need to do it or somebody else needs to be doing it, that you delegate it to, or whatever. That mindset isn't in a good cadence.
right.
And it's always putting you in reactive mode, always kind of overwhelming your brain to where you're just disorganized and you're just not keeping up, and it starts defeating you mentally.
Yeah.
And there's a point where everybody will crack and they're like, I'm super stressed out. I just don't care anymore. They're not sharp. They're losing sleep, and it's a spiral effect. If you don't get on top of that pretty quick, that starts spiraling into your personal life. Now your spouse is mad at you because you're showing up late or not showing
Yeah.
up at all to kid's ball game or a dinner date, or it starts getting out of control, and it gets people depressed and down, and then you go from bad to worse,
Yeah.
personally and professionally. And so good news is there are ways to prevent that. And
Yeah.
you know, talking to folks like you, me, and others that do some of the things that we do can really help improve your quality of life in that process.
Yeah. Thank you. And I would also just like to say, even though we know these things, like I know for myself, I will know something and I will do it. And then sometimes I fall off the bandwagon, right? And I have to get
Yeah.
myself back on it. And that's okay. So for everyone out there who might be having the shoulds right now, like, or I should have been doing that, I know better. That's not what this is about. It's really just about building awareness so that you can catch yourself quicker if that does happen and you start to derail or you go off in a different direction so that you can pull yourself back. And I like to, towards the end of the year, in the beginning of the year, go through the emails and, hey, what newsletters have I just been kind of deleting or disregarding? Let me unsubscribe from those, just get rid of the
Yeah.
noise. And it always feels like such a breath of fresh air, to
Yeah.
wake up and not have um, these emails. And, you've just inspired me because I have some emails that needed some action that I've left for about a week. And it's more just on my back end, to put the information into something else. But I'm going to do it this afternoon because I don't want it
Awesome.
just draining my energy. So
Well,
I'll message you when I've completed it to hold myself
awesome. I'm
accountable.
going to hold you accountable to that.
Yes, thank you. And that's a beautiful segue into our next point because, as a leader, we have to take accountability for our actions, responsibility. We also have to hold others accountable. And there's a real accountability issue in leadership across the generations. It's not just the younger generation or the older generation. It's sometimes personality types, sometimes the nature of the task at hand has shifted, has pivoted or evolved, and there hasn't been a conversation about what is expected and what's required. And so people are relying on assumption and what they believe to be true, which may no longer be the case. So, how do you help your clients, and what is your thought on how we can improve our own self accountability, and then from there, be more accountable with our teams?
Yeah. Good question. The two best friends you can have as a leader is clarity and simplicity.
Mm,
This world is full of technology and full of tools and software and, full of all kinds of things that may or may not be helpful to you. Um, and those things can complicate things, right? And
mm,
so as a leader, you're focused on the strategic vision, right? You're the one with the vision of the organization and where we are and where we're going and why we're going there. You're the one providing the guidance and the direction and all of the motive motivation and focus for doing whatever you're doing and why you're doing it, right? And it gets complicated, right? As a leader,
yeah,
you're dealing with everything from, people issues and HR policy changes to benefits to, attracting people, retaining people, cultural differences, hybrid work environments and work from home, not work from home, and in marketing and sales and customer, like everything in the organization, you have to deal with it.
yeah,
And a lot of times I see leaders go down these rabbit holes and these silos and really get deep into them and overwhelm themselves with all the complexities of all of those things and how they work, and they take their eye off the ball of the bigger picture of moving the whole enterprise forward towards in a synergetic manner towards a target, towards a goal. Simplicity and clarity, right? Clarity, you need to always be clear about your priorities.
mm,
You need to be clear, right? So I'm an ex-military guy. I'll give you a military example. there's an ally and there's an axis,
Mhm.
good versus bad, a friend versus foe, whatever, right? There's two opposing groups that decide that, they can't work out their differences, and they go to war with each other. They're in a battle, right? And they meet on some battlefield in some part of the world. And once the battle ensues, right, there's usually a plan or some sorts going into the battle,
Right.
how many troops you need and what kind of bombs you're going to use and airplanes and
Mm.
tanks, and like there's somewhat of a plan, right?
Right.
But the plan usually gets disrupted in the first 5 minutes of the battle, because the battle ensues and things happen that you don't anticipate.
Right.
They call it the fog of war, right? Before too long, people are all over the battlefield doing stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's the leader of the people you're leading into battle. You need to always have clarity of the battlefield. Where are my people on the battlefield? How many bullets do we have left? Do we need to call an airstrike? Like you
Yeah.
always need to know the conditions on the ground. And
Right.
then sometimes it literally can get foggy and smoke filled, and you can't see all that. And you've got to find ways to always maintain clarity, either elevate above at a higher altitude so you can see the bigger picture, or whatever that may be. But clarity, always maintaining clarity about where you're at, where you're going, and where you are in the process, and making adjustments to that, and adjustments to the plan, adjustments to your KPIs, or however you're tracking your progress, right?
Mhm.
And then simplicity. I think in this highly, technical, sophisticated world we live in is all good and well, but we overcomplicate things.
Yes.
Keeping things simple, keeping things focused. Are in a company, are you working on 85 things at one time? Yes.
Right.
Do all 85 things need your attention this week? No, right? And so I always coach leaders that every single week, usually on a Sunday afternoon or a very early Monday morning, you go look at your calendar for the week. You make sure you got all the bases covered on the calendar, and that you reprioritize what needs to happen. What are the
Mm.
5 things that are the most important things that we have to do this week to move the needle? What are the most important 5 things this week? That's in conjunction with the broader priorities and goals of the organization, right? You break
Yeah.
it down on a week by week basis, and reset the team and communicate that with your team to execute that, so they're aware and focused. And so you execute and do work, you assess, gain clarity, simplify things, reprioritize, go forward, execute. And it's a cadence, it's a repeatable process, and I found that that is very effective.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you as a leader must be clear before you can then make that clear to others. And
Yeah.
I've seen it time and time again where um, people are having competing priorities, right? And they might even, as you mentioned, be in opposition to each other, but they're not yet aware of that. So they're
Yeah.
trying to make progress on both. And so getting that clarity and understanding for yourself is really important so that you can then put them in the right priority order.
Yeah, absolutely. Leaders always have to be out in front, leading and scouting and assessing, and kind of checking the temperature on things as they're moving forward. The leaders always have to be out in front of the crew, so the crew, the team knows how to navigate that path, and keep the leader in front of them. At any
Absolutely.
point, if a leader gets too far ahead of people, and the followers of the leader can't see the leader, then nobody's leading the group,
Right.
right? And if the leader's too close to the group and intermingled in everything going on in the group all the time, then you still don't have a leader. You have a coworker at that point, right? So you got to
Yes,
find the balance of being out ahead of them, but not too far ahead to where they can't you lose track of each other in the process, and people start venturing off and creating their own priorities at that point.
absolutely. I agree. Jason, I'm so sorry. This is what happens when you do a live interview, but somebody has just come to my door and they're not leaving. So if can you just give me one moment, I will make sure that I'll be right back.
You bet.
Thank you.
You're on mute.
I'm muted.
There
Yes.
you go.
So talk about timing miscommunication. Someone thought they were coming at 12:30 and they came an hour early, but it's okay. um, no, I really love that you mentioned that we as a leader, we can't be too close and we also can't be too far away. It really is this kind of delicate dance, if you will,
Yeah.
so that and always being present in order to notice that, right? If we get so focused on the mission and the target, then we start to lose sight of what might be happening behind us and what message we're communicating. But if we're not focused enough and we're, too much in the weeds of everything, we also can't drive that change in the direction that we want. So that was a really important point. Thank you for that analogy as well. It certainly
Yeah.
made it really clear in my mind.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance as a leader, and it's kind of a rhythm you have to establish with your leadership style, the timing for which you do things, and building some consistency with your meeting cadence, and driving accountability, and getting everybody in a rhythm, right?
Yeah,
You can't effectively lead others if you can't lead yourself first, right? It all starts
right.
with you. And so if you don't have your crap together, and you're not organized, and you haven't figured out your leadership style and how to lead and communicate and be proactive, and there's a balance to that. There's a whole art to that.
Yes,
It's really an art, right?
it
It's not a
is.
science, it's an art. Once you really got that figured out and you got that flow going, that's where the magic really, really happens for everybody involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's, of course, frameworks that we can follow, but if it's not working with your energy or your personality or your style, it won't feel authentic. And that's, where the disconnect goes. And, sometimes we just have to trial a few things and figure it out along the way and figure out, hey, what worked for me 5 years ago is no longer working for me. And that's okay, right? We can we
Yeah.
can grow and evolve our style, and with time and experience, we get that wisdom because we're practically applying the things that we learn. So that's why it's really important to practice, and not just have the intellectual conversation or reflection about it. It's really important to try. And so, what you said before about simplicity, I remembered the KISS method. But I didn't like to say the word stupid with my clients or my team. So I would say, keep it simple, silly. Obviously for myself, keep it simple, Sarah. That's a mantra I say a lot. Because otherwise I can tend to like get super into the details and the weeds of things and then lose sight
Yep.
of, making the progress, and getting paralyzed in that. So,
Yep.
um,
Absolutely.
so when you have a client that's spinning wheels a little bit, how do you help them to begin to get that traction again?
Yeah. Happens all the time. People have a lot of things on their mind, right? As a
Yeah.
leader, your mind can get stretched in 800 different directions on 800 different things, and people get lost in the sauce, as they say, right? It happens. It happens to everybody, including me. But um, it goes back to clarity and simplicity again,
Mm.
right? I've got a client right now. that's got a very thriving business and runs a logistics oriented company,
Okay.
growing, doing well. This is a phenomenal young lady, superstar, go getter, entrepreneur, at the heart, and is doing very well. I mean, she's doing very well. The company's growing and evolving and what have you. However, they're at a point of transitioning from one stage of growth to the next stage of growth, right?
Yeah.
Going
Yeah.
from a $5 million company to a $10 million company. And it's different
Yes.
expectations, different kind of rhythm of how things work. More people, more clients, more money, more process, more everything, right?
Yeah.
Everything's different at a transitional state there. And she's dealing with over the past few weeks, she's sent me, we in our sessions and conversations, she's called, she's emailed, we've had many engagements that involve everything from hiring a new employee that she wants to hire, to pay raises and
Mhm.
bonuses for employees at the end of the year, and what to do there.
Right.
One person, is asked for a 20% increase, but they're not doing any more work to earn
Yeah.
it. To a whole new sales model, to a strategic plan and goals. Like, so there's like these big five things that are just percolating and boiling on the stovetop here that we've been dealing with, right?
Yeah.
And there was a point last week where I said, okay, and I could tell she was stressed and she was struggling. She was in the fight and was struggling to get off the ropes. She was taking
Yeah.
body blows by all this stuff and taking some shots that were a little painful and just trying to work through it, in addition to a couple of personal things that were going on with her that was eating up her time and energy and stuff. And I said, okay, great time to hit the pause button and let's assess where we are on the playing field here. A lot of stuff going on. Let's see if we can make sense of it. And so she was letting herself kind of get in her own head and wasn't thinking clearly. So I kind of grabbed her by the back of the collar and pulled her out of the fire a little bit. And I said,
Yeah.
okay, time out. Out of these things that are going on, which one is the most important, most urgent thing we need to solve today?
Mm.
Yes, your employee wants a raise. Yes, there's this opportunity to hire somebody. But if you dealt with it today, what is it going to put out a fire, or is it just another thing to deal with? Well, we go through the process and she determined that that was not the most important thing of today. She's like, "So what do I do?" And I'm like, "Well, communicate back to your employee. Thank you for, providing me some information on things you're doing.
Yeah.
Let's schedule a meeting in the next 2 weeks to talk through that and figure out some next steps and look at some options." Okay, now you just dealt with that. The most important thing we need to do is to lock down your 2024 strategic plan, priorities, and goals.
Mm.
And that's what we focused on. And we worked through that. We've got that solidified. I think the last time I saw the latest version, I think we've got that locked down, ready to go and execute. Now we're scheduling a company, come together where she can go through that with them and start breaking these things down and assigning tasks and goals. And I said, because a lot of times people want to just deal with little siloed issues and just
Right.
day-to-day problems.
Yeah.
And I said, but the things that you're talking about that you're dealing with are true and relevant and important. However, if you really kind of think about things, there's a lot of those little things can be incorporated into the big thing. And the big thing
Yeah.
was, okay, get the plan locked down. get the goals laid out, get the action steps and the timeline and the milestones of these things articulated, get them plugged into that, because a lot of the things that you're being presented to deal with right now are just byproducts of those things. When you get everybody on the team on the same page with the playbook. They've
Yep.
got a copy of it. They know exactly what their role is in the organization, how to start executing in the new direction. A lot of these other things just kind of take care of themselves. You don't have to like individually fight these
Right.
things and go to battle with individual, you know, uh, individual warriors coming at you, you slaying them one at a time. Like, no, you can just drop one bomb and take care of all of them at one time here, so to speak,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And that was a powerful lesson. She thought about that, and then later, hey, that was great. I really needed to reset my thinking there, because she was chasing after, like she owed individual attention to individual
Mhm.
things. I'm like, no, not really. You can handle all those things in one shot here.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. And it goes to show the importance of having someone in our life, whether that's a coach, a mentor, someone on our board of directors that we really go to regularly to get that outside perspective because I've been there, I'm sure you've been there, and it will happen again, right? And so to have someone that can help pull you back out so you can look at it and gain that new perspective is really crucial to being able to get out of those weeds and to be able to start making, progress on the plan. And, sometimes we have a plan, but we just stop following it for whatever reason. And so just
That's
having the
true.
accountability to stay on track or to help us get back on track.
Yeah. So a question to you and your audience would be, how do you know what you're doing is the best way to do it?
Yeah. I
How do you
mean,
know?
for me, I always have the mindset that there could be another way that's better. And I haven't figured that out yet. But by doing what I'm doing, I'm going to learn. And I do work with a coach, and I also check in with my mentors. And I'll go back to the plan I write in the beginning of the year to see, am I following the priorities I set, or have they shifted? And if they've shifted, what adjustments need to be made? Because otherwise we can become rigid in our habits, right? So that's currently how I do it. But what would you say to that response, and how could I get that better?
So for you, or for anybody, it's isn't just about you, it's about
Right.
everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody has blind spots. Everybody has experiences they've learned from. They've got skills, talents, knowledge that they've accrued, from just birth and being having God-given talents to learning and, going to school or whatever, getting trained on certain things. Everybody's, knows some things,
Right.
but nobody knows everything.
Right.
Okay? And so as a leader, you have so much stuff going on, so much responsibility for so many things at one time. It's the game of balancing, a bunch of balls and never letting any of them hit the floor, right? It's kind of what it feels like. But the fact of the matter is, decision making is the most important thing you can do as a leader.
Hmm.
And your job is to make the best, most informed, quality decision that you can make based on the information you have at that time. As a leader, it also gets lonely at the top. People don't get it. You can't go talk to your employees because, that can be uncomfortable. That can scare them, freak them out. If you're talking about big ticket items that are stressing you
Right.
out, like you just can't go to your employees and talk about those kinds of things, right? You
Right.
can only go home to your spouse and talk about those things with them. They just either don't get it, or they get tired of hearing it and they want to talk about other things, or
Right.
right. And it gets very lonely at the top as a leader. There's only so many people that really get it. And so I would encourage you, for the folks out there listening, if you don't have people, in your inner circle of trust that get it, that understand things, that may have broader, bigger perspectives and experiences to draw from. If they're not plugged into best practices and the best ways of doing things, regardless of industry, regardless of the type or size business you may have, you need to build your inner circle.
Yes.
You need people that can point out your blind spots to you and say, hey, have you thought about it this way? Or
Yeah.
how do you know that is accurate information? What are you basing that information off of? Well, my system said that. Well, how do you know your system's got accurate data?
Yeah.
Like I can't count how many times I've been in situations where that was the
The
case,
issue.
right?
Yeah.
And so you need to build, I go to this particular church here in my hometown, and they've got this theme.
Hmm.
Who is your crew?
Yeah.
Right? And that's all to connect people together, and so I'm a part of this men's group. And
Beautiful.
there's a woman's group as well. And then
Yeah.
we all kind of come together, at the end of
Yeah.
and every week we all meet in this church, and we kind of get, you know, placed in these groups of like 5 or 6 people, and we can really break things down and really talk about things honestly and
Yeah.
openly, and be supporters of each other. And there's
Yes.
accountability there, but there's transparency there. And the point is everybody needs a crew, and the
Yeah.
church is just providing, this is an avenue to bring people together in the community to be a crew,
Yes.
help each other, to come together and do something in the community, whatever that may be. And so in business, you need a crew. You need, a coach or another CEO or another group of people that may be smarter than you in other ways or more
Yeah.
experienced than you or whatever, that can challenge you, get you to think differently, and help you grow and evolve and make really good decisions.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as a leader, if you make one bad decision, it can be catastrophic. But if you,
Right.
mitigate that risk by having people around you that really understand things differently and will, lean into you in a very professional, caring way, but accountable way, that will say,
Yeah.
I don't think that's the path you need to be on. I think you need to take a right turn here. And
Yeah.
that can be huge.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because it's very important to have those supporters in your life and to seek them out, right? Because they won't just appear, right? You
No.
often need to curate and create it yourself, because it can be very lonely, and especially for entrepreneurs or solopreneurs out there, right? You need to be with people who understand what your day to day looks like and can help you with what you're dealing with, because that will be very different than a CEO of a Fortune 100 company, right? But you could also still learn from that person. So perhaps a mastermind, a church group. Men's and women's groups are wonderful. I really highly encourage things of that nature too, because what we do in our personal life affects our professional life and vice versa.
Yeah.
The two biggest things I had to learn as a leader were to ask for help and actually receive it. Not be like, oh no, I got it right when it came my way, but to actually feel comfortable asking for help, and then not wanting or needing to be right all the time.
Yeah.
I would defend a position until, like, I even knew I was wrong, but I had to defend it because I had to be right. And,
Yeah.
like that bulldog, and I'm, like, on the gladiator field and about to, and they're like, "Will you yield?" And it's like, "No, I will not." But I have learned to yield and to say yes, and say, "Okay, well, what could I do better here?" And way before I get to that stage now. So there's been a lot of improvement. Um, but yes, that was such a fantastic piece of advice for people that are listening. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Uh, so Jason, I have a question. What would you say is your superpower?
That is a very powerful question because it took me probably 30 years to figure that out. And I define superpower as, some God-given talent that I was given that, others may not have been given, or at least in the
Mhm.
way that it was given to me, and the
Right.
way it lives in me, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of tie this, and when I coach people, I kind of tie this to John Maxwell's five swings, that
Okay.
which is a metaphor for if you only had an axe and there's a tree
Mhm.
and you only got five swings to chop down a tree, how would you do that? How
Okay.
what is your strengths and best ways of doing that, right? And it's really metaphorical for really what are you really truly the best at?
Mm.
At the end of the day, if you just do those 5 things and only those 5 things, what are you really truly the best at? And that would move the needle, right? And
Mm.
so I've done a lot of reflection on that, and I've determined that one of my top strengths, one of my top superpowers, as you call it, is the ability to quickly assess situations accurately. I can
Mm.
walk into any business. I can talk to any person one on one or in a group or whatever setting. I can go into any kind of situation and in a very short amount of time kind of feel it out, size it up, and with high degrees of accuracy articulate it back. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a business meeting or even working with, coaching clients, and they'll be talking about a situation, and they'll come up for air, and they're like, "So, Jason, what do you think?" And I'll say, "Well, I think, I understand your perspective, but I think you're, off base here, or I think you're absolutely right. No, here's exactly what's going on." And I go boom, da da boom, da da boom, da da boom, and I lay it out. I can't tell you, Sarah, how many times this has happened to me. And they will back up and they will look at me with this really strange look on their face, like, how in the heck did you know
Yeah.
that?
Right. Yeah.
Like you nailed this situation.
Yeah.
I was on a call just the other day with a prospect that was looking for a coach, an executive coach. And I asked him a few questions, as I always do, to kind of get the conversation going. Like,
Right.
so tell me about what you're doing.
Yeah.
Tell me what you're looking for in a coach. How do you know you found the right coach when you found them? And
Right.
I ask them a few basic questions. They start talking a little bit, and this guy talked for about 5 minutes, and he's like, "So, does that make sense? Am I I feel like I'm just talking. I don't really know if I'm articulating this right. And does that make sense, Jason?"
Yeah.
And I just looked at him and I say, "Makes perfect sense. So basically, I think what you're saying is X and Y and Z and da 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 da." And I laid it out. I said, "You're probably feeling this and you're probably wondering that. And here's probably what you're," and I laid it out to him, and he sat back and his mouth was wide. He's like, "That's exactly how did you know that?"
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it's a gift or a curse. Sometimes it's both, right? Sometimes it
Yeah.
can't be a curse. But I think that is something I found to be unique with me,
Beautiful.
that I can read people well, I can read the room, I can read a situation, I can walk around people's businesses, and I just pick up on little things like
Yeah.
if people are laughing and joking and smiling, walking down the
Right.
hall, if there's good energy, or if people are walking around with their heads focused on the floor and looking down and
Right.
sad. And I can just tell how the CEO's interacting with people, or people like running away from them because they don't want to be around them, or if they're
Right.
running to them to tell them another joke, or like
Yeah.
you can just read things and pick up on things. And I found that to be very powerful, and is a contributing factor to why I started coaching
Yeah.
business and why I do what I do.
Beautiful. I love that. I mean, it's very clear that you have that capability, and you're not the number one coach in the Eastern United States for nothing, right? That is such a powerful thing, because also when people feel seen like that, then they can relax and start to drop some of the story and work through all of that. And it's until someone can actually see them, because sometimes they might not even see it so clearly themselves, that the shift really can occur. So that's really powerful. It's a great
Yeah.
superpower, and thank you for putting it to good use in the way that you have been. That's it's a
Oh,
really
thank you.
special thing. Yeah.
Appreciate
So,
that.
Jason, in addition to your men's group and your church that you're a part of, who else do you go to? Who would you say is on your board of directors? Do you have other groups? Do you have specific people? I'd love to know a little bit more about that.
If you map the most successful leaders in the world,
Hmm.
presidents of the United States, world leaders, company owners, I don't know, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever leaders you deem to be good leaders, there's one common thread. The best leaders are balanced.
Mm.
They're balanced. So for me, who's on my board of directors per se? Well, one, my wife, she's my best friend and she has her superpowers as well. And
Yeah.
she gives me her perspective all the time and is a great champion. Good in good ways or ways that I need to think differently for me. Church, there's some
Hmm.
folks that I go to church with that are good, grounded people that I have grown to like and respect and just connect with on some different levels that kind of cultivate the spiritual side of things, right?
Yeah.
Um, I like to stay connected to the community. So I'm
Hmm.
actually on some boards in
Hmm.
the community of some business things and
Yeah.
broader, things going on in the community. And I found that those like-minded people are really good supporters, back and forth, right?
Mm.
Um, and then I've also got myself, mentors that I've had as, that were bosses to me
Mm.
and I still keep in touch with, and I'll run things by them. They're like, no, 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 Jason, this way,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they help keep me clear
Yeah.
and simple in what I'm doing. And of course, I've got a coach as well, right?
Yeah.
All successful people have really good coaches, whether it's athletics
Yeah.
or business or anything else. And so having a sounding board, having somebody give you different perspectives and hold you accountable and um somebody to kind of compete with in that space is really healthy. So I try to kind of round out my stable full of some different types of people from different perspectives
Yeah.
that allow me to be as balanced as I can. I try to really work on just staying balanced in
Yeah.
different ways.
Powerful. Yes. It's important to have different perspectives so that we can challenge, those blind spots, right? And
Yeah,
to understand how other people view the world, right? And it's not that they're right and you're wrong or vice versa. It's just understanding. And in that understanding, we can find the connection and the collaboration and the working together, and maybe even find a new way, a better way of what we've been doing before. So I love that you brought in that balanced aspect to it, because sometimes there might be people that um, we admire, but we don't always agree with, right? And that's okay. It
that's
doesn't
right.
mean that they can't be an advisor. Or you might admire the things that they're accomplishing, but you don't admire certain personality traits. And
Yeah,
that's also okay, because you don't have to have those personality traits, but you can admire that process, right? And so there's a lot that we can learn when we bring curiosity to the table.
absolutely. Yeah. I think along that line, you don't have to love everybody. You don't even have to like everybody, but everybody's got value. Everybody's got a unique thing or things about
Yes.
them that make them different enough to make they offer something that can be of some level of value, right? And so, you know, whether you're super successful or just successful or starting to be successful, no matter where you may be in the world of defining success for you, just think about this, the Tom Brady's and the Tiger Woods, elite kind of folks, they're successful people,
Yeah.
and just not maybe just in life, but let's just say they're a professional football player and a golfer, right? They're really, really successful. They're the GOAT. They're the best at what
Yeah.
they do, right? But they still have coaches. There's still
Yes.
people around them. Do they listen to everything they say and do everything, personally and professionally? Probably not. But
Right.
one person can say one thing or do one thing or show you something differently that can just turn the dial one click,
Yes. 1 degree. It's just 1 degree.
1 degree of something. Oh, they said a certain way and it just clicked with you differently, and it makes you,
Right.
gives you an idea about something, or, a way to think about it a little bit differently. One click
Mm-hmm.
can make all the difference in the world. One adjustment for Tiger Woods can mean the difference between winning the Masters or coming in second place.
Absolutely.
One click.
Absolutely. It's the rule of 60, right? If you're 1 degree off, like from a flying perspective, then, over time, you're going to be in a very different destination, 60 miles off, right? And so
That's
that
right.
1 degree today might seem like nothing, but over time, you get this exponential change. And so instead of trying to change everything in the kitchen sink, like you said before, getting clear and prioritizing, focusing on that 1 degree, that's going to be very powerful.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. People get stuck on their plans and strategies sometimes. And I say,
Mhm.
well, let's just start small and simple. If you made 1% change a month for 12 months, you'd have 12% total
Right.
amount of change. So if we equate that to your investment account, 401k, if you got 12% return on your investment, would that
Right.
be good for you? Most people would say, yeah, that's pretty good.
Right.
So if we put 12% of profitability into your company, if we got 12% more ideal, bigger, better clients, if we got 12% higher quality of new hires, if we got 12% of anything in your business, what difference would it make?
Right. Yeah.
What
No, it's
what could
yeah.
you do with that?
Yeah. And people,
And
sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just saying, to small incremental things add up to just reinforce your point. And at the end of the day, you look back like, wow, we did a lot of stuff. Man, look how far we've come. Look where we are today, right? You
Yeah.
just have to be disciplined to the small wins that as they
Yeah.
say, you gotta win, the battle to win the next battle to
Right.
ultimately win the war.
I love that you brought in discipline. And I saw something this morning that said discipline is the ultimate form of self love. Because
I like that.
and I didn't
Nice.
even read anything, but I just thought that was a very powerful quote. And when I reflected on that, I would agree with that statement, because when we are being disciplined with something, even this tiny one small thing, it's because we believe that, we're worth getting what's on the other side of that. And so it was a really nice reframe.
Wow.
And
That's
as you were
powerful.
speaking, I just it popped in my head, so I thought I would share it.
Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna have to write that one down. That one's a good one.
Yeah, I was looking for, like, a screensaver actually for my phone, and it was one of the ones that popped up, and I thought, "You know what? That's gonna be one that I save." That's a really good one.
Yeah.
So, my last question that I always love to ask my guests, which is a really big question, it's how do you best represent or serve humanity? And the context around this question is, another intelligent life form has come to Earth, and you are the first human that they meet. What do they get when they meet you?
More than they can handle. I don't know. You ask my parents, right? Boy, that is a powerful question, a big question, and I love it. I love big questions. I don't like softballs. I will answer it this way. Back a number of years ago, I figured out my leadership style and kind of what works for me to be effective, to
Mhm.
serve as a leader to the best of my ability. And, if you read all the leadership books and watch all the, stuff out there in the world that talks about leadership, you can really boil it down to three things. And this is kind of how I've led. This is kind of my mindset around it, right? It's very simple. Three things. One, leaders motivate and influence people to do things.
Mhm.
Number one, things that they may not like, things they may not understand, things they may not care about, to the point where they start taking ownership of it and selling it like it was their own idea. Leaders motivate and influence people to see things, think bigger, etc. Okay, number two, leaders grow new leaders. Leaders are secure in uh, their own leadership and their own, who they are as a person, to give away things and to build other people and empower other people and replace themselves with more capable people than maybe they were armed with when they took the role, right?
Right.
And number three, leaders set people up for success and help them with tools and resources. They keep them from, falling off the cliff and crashing and burning. They guide and direct. They just help people be more successful. Sometimes that's mentoring, sometimes that's um, connecting them to people they need to be connected with, whatever that may be. And so when I started, I got to a point in my career where had led 12 different organizations, and I didn't feel like I wanted to lead another big organization again. Like I've been there, done that. I was looking for
Yeah.
something different and bigger. And it was about giving back, right? When you've been to, the top of the mountain in your career as you've defined it, then it's about, okay, well, how do I help other people do that? Kind of
Right.
following those three principles I just stated. And so I figured out what coaching was. And I'm like, wow, that's it. It just kind of hit me one day when I was talking to a friend and we are talking about coaching, and I'm like, it just bam, it just hit my mind. I'm like, that's the venue for which I can channel these things and make the world a better place.
Mm.
So I take all my spiritual things and all of my leadership things and my experiences and my talents and my knowledge and things that people mentored me on, just take everything about me that I had kind of like a vacuum cleaner, just kind of sucked all that stuff up over many, many years of life on earth. And it's like, okay, now it's time to create the next generation.
Mm.
And so I've dedicated my life, my second half of my career, if you want to call it that, to helping other people see what they can't see things they don't even see in themselves when they look in the mirror, help people uncover those talents and those skills, help people gain the confidence they need, get out of those comfort zones, push them, motivate them, give them tools and resources, put stuff in their toolbox that they can take with them and continue to sharpen their saw and get better and better and better and take them where they need to be, as a leader, as a husband, a wife, a parent, or whatever that is. And so to package that and motivate them, grow them, and set them up for success in all the ways that I can, and connect them to other people that can do things for them that I may not be able to, and just kind of wrap around, build that stable of success around them
Mm,
to go out there and lead, go out there and run the next company, go out there and solve the next, world hunger problem or whatever that may be,
yeah.
innovate the next cool thing that's really going to make a difference. Not only in their own lives and families, but for maximizing their potential to leave their mark on the level they are capable of leaving their mark,
Yeah.
as time goes by. And so that's my passion, that's my mission and purpose right now.
Beautiful. Well, what I'm hearing is that on this interstellar galactic podcast, if someone's listening in and they're coming to Earth, um, if they want to really understand how they can present themselves and be successful on Earth, they can come to you for some coaching.
Happy to talk to anybody anytime.
Beautiful. No, thank you so much, Jason. This has been an excellent episode. There were a lot of really great tools that you presented and new perspectives that people can consider. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah, for for the opportunity to connect with you and your audience and continue our conversations. And for folks out there that may want to learn more, I've got a lot of free tools and resources on the website. It's soarhighercoaching.com, and you can go out there and there's access to the podcast. There's all kind of free tools and resources, assessments and books and all kind of stuff out there, that you can use as you see fit to help you and guide you in your life.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yes, I was just about to ask you. So, if, besides your website, where people can, I know, find your podcast and your free resources, if they want to book a call with you, is that also on the website?
Yep.
Do you work a lot on LinkedIn? What are some of the other avenues people can reach out and start to follow your content?
Yeah, the two easiest ways to do it is, one, go to the website. You can reach me directly there. You can go book yourself directly on the calendar from there. You can ask me questions. You can connect with me in almost every way possible, and
Mhm.
all of the stuff is on the website for you to look
Okay.
at. From success stories to free resources to whatever.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, I'm obviously on LinkedIn. You can contact me there. All of my contact information is in LinkedIn, in numerous places on my LinkedIn profile. So I try to make it as easy as and simple as possible for folks to connect and share, and look forward to meeting you and helping you in any way I can.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Jason, again. And for everyone listening, please stay tuned for the next episode on the lounge. We'll be back with you live next week. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.